The Great Hall stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of alien beings sat in floating seats that moved through the air like gentle clouds. Each creature was different from the next. Some had scales that changed colors with their emotions. Others were made of what looked like living crystal. A few appeared to be nothing more than glowing energy wrapped in metal suits. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would make the most important decision in 1,000 years. Ambassador Zeth Kree stood at the center of it all. His body was made of blue crystal that sparkled like diamonds. When he spoke, his voice rang out like beautiful music. But his words were not beautiful at all. "Fellow members of the Council," he began, "we gather today to discuss the human problem. For 50 years, we have tried to teach these creatures how to behave in civilized space. They have failed every test." A hologram appeared above his head. It showed a human spaceship flying through an area marked with warning signs. The sign said, "Danger. Do not enter," in 100 different alien languages. "This is the 7th time this month," Zeth Kree continued. "Human ships ignore our safety zones. They fly into areas where dangerous energy storms can tear apart any vessel. When we ask them why, they say they wanted to see what would happen." Angry sounds came from the crowd. Some aliens clicked their claws together. Others made hissing noises. A few simply glowed brighter with frustration. Another hologram appeared. This one showed humans talking to a group of red-skinned aliens with 4 arms each. "The Kelthari people," Zeth Kree explained. "We placed them under protective isolation 300 years ago. Their technology was too dangerous. They had weapons that could destroy entire star systems. We decided they needed time to learn wisdom before joining galactic society." He paused for effect. "The humans found them anyway. They ignored our barriers. They ignored our warnings. They made friends with the Kelthari and helped them build new ships. Ships that use their dangerous technology." The crowd grew louder. Someone shouted, "How did they even find them?" "That brings us to our biggest problem," Zeth Kree said. "Human technology makes no sense. They travel faster than light, but not using our hyperspace routes. They build energy shields that work differently from ours. They have weapons that seem to break the basic laws of physics." End quote. A new hologram showed a human warship. It was much smaller than the massive council vessels, but something about it looked wrong. The ship seemed to bend light around itself. Looking at it too long made the eyes hurt. "Our scientists have studied human technology for decades," Zeth Kree said. "They cannot explain how any of it works. Humans claim they developed it all themselves, but this is impossible. They are a young species. They should not have such advanced knowledge." An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. "Perhaps they stole these technologies from someone else?" "We thought so too," Zeth Kree replied. "But we have found no evidence of theft. It appears humans simply think differently than the rest of us. They see solutions where we see only problems." The Crystal Ambassador's form grew brighter. This was his moment. "Friends, we have tried everything. We have sent teachers to show them our ways. They thanked us politely and continued doing whatever they wanted. We have given them rules to follow. They follow some and ignore others, saying the rules make no sense. We have threatened them with punishment. They just laughed and said we were welcome to try." More angry sounds from the crowd. A creature that looked like a walking tree said, "Then, what do you suggest we do?" "There is only one solution," Zeth Kree announced. "We must use the ancient law of banishment. We must cut humanity off from galactic civilization until they learn to behave properly." The hall fell silent. Banishment was the most serious punishment the Council could give. It meant a species would be trapped in their home star system forever. Special barriers would be built around their space, making it impossible for them to travel to other worlds. Only twice in galactic history had the Council used this punishment. Both times, the banished species had eventually died out, alone and forgotten. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the small defendant's platform. She was the only human in the entire hall. Her uniform was neat and clean, but she looked very small, surrounded by thousands of alien beings who wanted to punish her entire species. When the time came for her to speak, she stood up slowly. Her voice was calm and clear. "Honored members of the Council," she said, "you say we refuse to follow your rules. This is true. Your rules tell us we cannot explore dangerous areas, but we explore them safely. Your rules say we cannot contact certain species, but we have made good friends with them. Your rules say our technology is impossible, but it works perfectly well for us." She looked around the hall, making eye contact with as many aliens as possible. "You want us to limit ourselves because you have chosen to limit yourselves. You want us to be afraid of danger because you are afraid. You want us to accept that some things are impossible because you believe they are impossible." Her voice grew stronger. "Humanity will not apologize for refusing to accept limitations that others choose to put on themselves. We will not say sorry for being curious about the universe, and we will not ask forgiveness for developing technology that works differently from yours." She sat down. Her speech was over. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some aliens supported banishment. Others said it was too harsh. A few even suggested that maybe humans had good ideas that the Council should consider. But in the end, the vote was clear. The giant display above the hall showed the numbers. 723 votes for banishment, 97 against, and 27 who chose not to vote at all. Zeth Kree's crystal body pulsed with satisfaction. The decision is made. Humanity will be confined to their home system. Quantum barriers will be erected immediately. Let this be a lesson to all species that civilized behavior has consequences. As the barriers activated around Earth's solar system, Captain Chen smiled slightly. The Council had made a very big mistake. They assumed their technology was the only way to travel between the stars. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. 3 years passed in perfect silence. The quantum barriers around Earth's solar system showed no activity at all. No human ships tried to break through. No signals came from inside asking for help or mercy. It was as if humanity had simply accepted their punishment and given up on exploring the galaxy. Dr. Veltar was very pleased with this result. The tall, green alien worked as the Council's chief scientist who studied other species. His job was to watch the barriers and report on what humans were doing inside their prison. Every month, he filed the same report. Humans were behaving normally inside their solar system. They were building things on their planets and moons, just like always. Their population was growing slowly. Their technology seemed to be developing at the same rate as before. "The barriers are working perfectly," he told the Council during one of his regular presentations. "Humanity appears to have accepted their situation. Without access to galactic trade and technology, their aggressive expansion has stopped completely." Ambassador Zeth Kree nodded approvingly. His crystal body glowed with satisfaction. "Excellent news, Doctor. How long do you estimate before their civilization begins to decline?" "Hard to say exactly," Veltar replied. "But without new resources from other worlds, I expect to see problems within 50 to 100 years. Their technology will stop advancing. Their economy will slow down. Eventually, future generations might become wise enough to ask for readmission to galactic society under proper supervision." The Council members made happy sounds. Some clicked their claws together in approval. Others hummed with satisfaction. The human problem had been solved with minimal effort. What the galaxy did not know was that humans had spent those 3 years working harder than they ever had before. On Luna, Earth's moon, Admiral Rebecca Torres walked through the largest construction facility in human history. The underground tunnels stretched for hundreds of miles, Millions of people worked day and night on Project Exodus. Status report. She called to her chief engineer. Raid. 70. Action. Lexing. Commander Park wiped sweat from his forehead. We're ahead of schedule, Admiral. The first wave of colony ships will be ready in 2 months. The new drive systems are testing perfectly. Torres nodded and continued walking. Through thick windows, she could see the ships being built. They looked nothing like the vessels humans had used before. These were strange, angular things that seemed to hurt the eyes when you looked at them too long. They twisted and curved in ways that should have been impossible. The Council thinks their barriers work because they block normal faster than light travel, Torres said. They're right. These barriers would stop any ship that uses hyperspace routes or jump gates. She stopped at a massive window overlooking the main construction bay. Inside, a ship the size of a city was taking shape. Workers crawled over its surface like ants, welding and connecting parts that defied easy description. But we never used hyperspace routes to begin with, she continued. Our technology was always different. We fold space itself, creating shortcuts through dimensions the Council doesn't even know exist. Commander Park smiled. The barriers are like building a wall to stop someone, then finding out they can teleport. Better than that, Torres said. It's like building a wall to stop someone who can phase through solid matter. The barrier isn't just useless against us. It doesn't even know we're there. On Mars, the preparations were even more impressive. The red planet had been turned into one giant factory. Every available person was working on building the fleet that would carry humanity back to the stars. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the main laboratory, watching her team test the latest breakthrough. In front of them, a metal cube the size of a house simply vanished. One moment it was there, solid and real. The next moment, it was gone. Dimensional fold successful, one of her assistants reported. Object has been moved to the target coordinates. Distance? Dr. Kim asked. 400 light-years. The object should reappear at the Alpha Centauri test site in 3, 2, 1. A communication screen lit up. A human face appeared, grinning widely. Package received, the person said. The cube appeared exactly where you said it would. No damage, no energy signature. It was like it had always been here. 5. Dr. Kim felt a surge of pride. The dimensional folding technology was working better than anyone had dared hope. They could move objects instantly across vast distances of space without leaving any trace that normal sensors could detect. How many ships can we move at once? She asked her team. With the new generators? We could fold an entire fleet of 1,000 vessels simultaneously. Maybe more. The preparations went far beyond just building ships and developing technology. Humanity had learned something important during their brief time in galactic society. The galaxy was much bigger than the Council wanted anyone to believe. Intelligence Officer Captain Lisa Wong stood in front of a massive star map. Red dots marked all the worlds, controlled by Council species. But scattered throughout the map were thousands of blue dots representing something else entirely. These are species the Council has never contacted, she explained to a group of ship captains. We found them using our long-range sensors before the barriers went up. Many of them are more advanced than Council members. Some have been spacefaring for thousands of years longer. One of the captains raised her hand. Why hasn't the Council found them? Because the Council only explores in straight lines along established hyperspace routes, Wong replied. They're like people who think the only way to travel is on highways. They never bother to look at what's between the roads. She pointed to a cluster of blue dots. This group here has technology that makes ours look primitive. They can build artificial gravity wells and control the flow of time itself. But they live in a region the Council marked as empty space because their sensors can't detect the hidden dimensions where these people actually live. Another captain whistled softly. How many are there? We've identified over 1,200 spacefaring species that the Council doesn't know exist. Many of them have been watching Council space for centuries, wondering why these strange aliens only fly on predetermined paths and refuse to explore properly. Wong smiled. They're very interested in meeting humans. Apparently, we're the first Council species they've encountered that doesn't think inside a box. As the 3 years passed, humanity's preparations reached a fever pitch. The barriers around their solar system registered no unusual activity because the barriers were looking for the wrong things. They could detect ships trying to use hyperspace or jump gates. They could spot energy signatures from conventional, faster-than-light drives. But they could not detect ships that folded space itself to travel between dimensions. They could not spot vessels that existed partially outside normal reality. And they certainly could not track communication signals that traveled through quantum entanglement networks. The Council thought humans were trapped and helpless. Instead, humanity had built the most advanced fleet in galactic history, established contact with over 1,000 unknown civilizations, and developed technology that made their original capabilities look like stone tools. Admiral Torres stood on the command deck of her flagship, looking out at the assembled fleet. Thousands of ships floated in space near Jupiter, invisible to any sensor the Council possessed. Each vessel was loaded with supplies, equipment, and volunteers ready to establish colonies throughout the galaxy. Admiral, her communication officer reported. All ships report ready for the first wave deployment. Torres nodded. Begin Phase 1. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you try to cage a species that refuses to accept limitations. The first ships began to fold space around themselves. Reality bent and twisted as they created doorways to distant stars. In moments, they were gone, traveling to places the Council had never imagined existed. The silence around Earth was about to end. And the galaxy would learn that some forces simply cannot be contained. The first sign that something was wrong came from a place no one expected. The Kelvar mining colony sat alone in deep space, far from any major trade routes. It was just a small facility built inside a large asteroid, where about 300 miners dug out rare crystals for the Council's technology systems. The colony was so remote and unimportant that most people forgot it existed. That's why it took 3 days for anyone to notice when all communication from Kelvar stopped. Station manager Krixtal tried calling them every hour. Each time, he got the same result. Nothing. No response on any channel. No automated signals from their computers. No emergency beacons. The colony had simply gone silent, as if it had never existed. Probably just equipment failure, his assistant suggested. Those old mining stations break down all the time. Krixtal wasn't so sure. The Kelvar colony was old, but their communication systems were brand new. The Council had just upgraded them 6 months ago. Equipment that new didn't just fail for no reason. He sent a report to Council security. 2 days later, a peacekeeping patrol ship arrived at the Kelvar colony to investigate. What they found made no sense at all. Commander Vexry led the inspection team through the asteroid facility. Everything was exactly as it should be. The lights were on. The air recycling systems hummed quietly. Computer screens showed that all mining equipment was working normally. There were hot meals still sitting on tables in the cafeteria. But there were no people anywhere. It's like they all just vanished into thin air, Vexry told his team. No signs of violence. No damage to anything. No indication that they were forced to leave quickly. They just aren't here anymore. His security officer ran a detailed scan with the ship's sensors. Commander, I'm not detecting any trace that another ship was ever here. No energy signatures. No exhaust trails. Nothing. According to our instruments, no vessel has visited this colony in over a year. That's impossible, Vexry said. 300 people don't just disappear by themselves. But the evidence was clear. Whatever had happened to the Kelvar colony, It had happened without leaving any trace that Council technology could detect. Over the next few weeks, more colonies went silent. Always small, remote outposts. Always places far from the major trade routes. The pattern was exactly the same every time. Total disappearance of all personnel, with no signs of struggle, no damage, and no evidence that anyone else had been there. Council security started to worry. They increased patrols in the affected areas and sent their best investigators to examine each site. But every investigation reached the same conclusion. People had vanished, without a trace. The breakthrough came when Commander Thrixol of the Andorian Defense Fleet was investigating another disappearance. The Harmony Research Station had gone dark, just like all the others. 50 scientists who had been studying unusual energy phenomena in a distant nebula were simply gone. Thrixol was running a standard sensor sweep around the station, when space itself seemed to tear open right in front of his ship. For just a moment, he saw something that hurt his mind to look at. A vessel that seemed to exist in several places at once. It was shaped like normal geometry, but also like shapes that couldn't exist in normal space. The ship appeared to be made of solid matter, but also of light and shadow and things that had no names. His ship's sensors went crazy. Every alert began screaming at once. The computers couldn't process what they were seeing. Error messages flashed across every screen. "What is that thing?" his navigator gasped. Before anyone could answer, the tear in space sealed itself. Reality returned to normal. The impossible ship was gone, as if it had never been there. But floating in the space where it had appeared was a small device that Thrixol's sensors could identify. It was a message beacon using technology from Earth. With shaking hands, Thrixol activated the beacon. A human voice filled his ship's communication system. The message was clear and simple. To the Galactic Council, your rules have never applied to us. What makes you think your barriers would be any different? The colonies you've lost are safe and well cared for. Consider this a demonstration. We'll be in touch. Admiral R. Torres, Human Colonial Fleet. Thrixol felt cold fear wash over him. Humans were supposed to be trapped behind quantum barriers around their home system. They shouldn't be able to travel anywhere, let alone operate ships throughout Council space without being detected. He immediately sent an emergency message to Council headquarters. Within hours, his report was being discussed in emergency session by the highest levels of government. The implications were terrifying. Humans had not only escaped their containment, but they had been operating freely in Council space for months. They had been making entire colonies disappear, without leaving any evidence that Council sensors could detect. Ambassador Zethkri studied the report with growing alarm. His crystal body flickered with nervous energy as he read the details over and over again. "This is impossible," he told the emergency assembly. "Our barriers are perfect. They block every known method of faster-than-light travel. No ship can leave or enter the Sol system." Dr. Veltar, who had been monitoring the barriers for 3 years, was equally confused. The barriers show no sign of being breached. Whatever method humans are using to travel, it doesn't interact with our containment technology at all. A council member who looked like a giant insect made a clicking sound of worry. If they can travel unseen throughout our space, what else have they been doing? How many of our colonies have they visited without us knowing? The questions multiplied. If humans could make entire populations disappear without a trace, did they have some kind of weapon that simply erased people? Were the missing colonists dead, or had they been taken somewhere? And most frightening of all, if humans could move around Council space without being detected, what was stopping them from attacking major population centers? "We need to increase security everywhere," demanded Fleet Admiral Cassandro. "Double the patrols, triple the sensor coverage, install additional monitoring equipment on every world." "That won't help," said Dr. Veltar quietly. "Whatever technology they're using, Our sensors can't detect it. We could station a battleship at every colony and it wouldn't matter. The humans could arrive, do whatever they wanted, and leave without us ever knowing they were there. The room fell silent as the full scope of the problem became clear. For 3 years, the Council had believed they had successfully contained humanity. Instead, humans had been moving freely throughout the galaxy, using technology that Council science couldn't even detect, let alone understand or counter. But the worst revelation was yet to come. The message beacon contained more than just Admiral Torres's words. Hidden in its data stream was something that made every Council member's blood run cold. Star charts. These weren't charts of Council space. These showed vast regions beyond the galaxy's edge that the Council had never explored. The charts revealed hundreds of star systems filled with thriving colonies, massive space stations, and civilizations the Council had never encountered. And all of it was marked with human symbols. "How long have they been out there?" whispered one delegate. Dr. Veltar ran calculations in his head. Based on the scope of what these charts show, they would have needed decades to build this. But humans have only been a spacefaring species for a century or so. Unless, said another Council member slowly, they've been traveling much faster and much farther than we ever realized. What if their technology has always been more advanced than ours? What if we never understood what we were dealing with? The emergency session continued for days. No one could agree on what to do. Some wanted to try negotiating with humans. Others demanded immediate military action. A few suggested that maybe the Council should simply pretend none of this was happening. But while they argued, more colonies continued to disappear. Each time, the same pattern. Total evacuation, with no trace of how it happened. And each time, the missing people were never seen again. The message was becoming clear. Humans weren't randomly attacking Council colonies. They were offering people a choice: stay under Council rule, or leave for something better. And apparently, a lot of people were choosing to leave. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been going on for 6 days straight. Representatives screamed at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate war against humanity. Others insisted on trying to negotiate. A few simply wanted to hide and hope the problem would go away. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center of the chaos, his crystal body flickering with stress. 3 more colonies had disappeared overnight while the Council argued. Each time, the same impossible pattern. Entire populations vanishing, without any trace that Council sensors could detect. "We cannot allow this to continue," shouted Fleet Admiral Cassandro. The massive alien's 4 arms gestured wildly as he spoke. "Every day we delay gives these humans more time to strike at our core worlds. We must act now, before it's too late." "Act how?" demanded Dr. Veltar. "We don't know where they are. We can't detect their ships. We don't understand their technology. How do you fight an enemy you can't even find?" The argument was interrupted by an aide who rushed into the chamber. Her face was pale with fear. "Urgent report from all planetary defense networks," she announced. "Unknown contacts have appeared in orbit around our primary worlds." Every representative fell silent. Slowly, they turned to look at the main display screen as it lit up with tactical readouts from across Council space. What they saw made no sense at all. Hundreds of ships hung in space around the most heavily defended planets in the galaxy. The vessels were unlike anything in Council records. They looked like geometric impossibilities. Shapes that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Looking at them too long made the eyes water and the mind hurt. "How did they get past our defenses?" whispered someone. "They didn't get past them," said the aide in a shaky voice. "They just appeared. One moment space was empty. The next moment they were there. Our sensors never detected them arriving." Admiral Cassandro activated his communication link to the fleet. "All ships, report status. Are we under attack?" Reports flooded in from across Council space. The human ships were simply hanging there. making no hostile moves. They weren't firing weapons or jamming communications. They were just present, demonstrating that they could appear anywhere they wanted without warning. "Sir," came one report from a battleship commander, "we have 17 unknown vessels in close orbit around the capital planet. They appeared right in the middle of our defensive formation. Our weapons are targeted and ready, but..." "But what?" Cassandra demanded. "Sir, we can't get a solid sensor lock on them. Our computers keep saying they're there and not there at the same time. It's like they're phasing in and out of reality." Before anyone could respond, every communication system in the council chamber activated simultaneously. Screens that had been showing star charts now displayed the face of a human woman in a military uniform. Her voice filled the room with perfect clarity, as if she were standing right there with them. "Members of the Galactic Council," Admiral Torres said. Her voice was calm but carried absolute authority. "You voted to banish humanity because we refused to follow your rules. You erected barriers to contain us because you believed your technology was supreme. You were wrong on both counts." The main display changed to show star charts unlike anything the Council had ever seen. These revealed vast regions of space filled with thriving colonies, massive space stations, and civilizations that looked nothing like Council species. "For 3 years, we've been establishing contact with species you've overlooked, ignored, or dismissed as primitive," Torres continued. "Turns out, when you're not constrained by Council regulations and bureaucracy, first contact goes quite smoothly. We've found 1,247 spacefaring civilizations that your comprehensive surveys somehow missed." Shocked gasps filled the chamber. Dr. Veltar's hands shook as he tried to process what he was seeing. The Council had believed they knew every major civilization in the galaxy. Their surveys had been going on for thousands of years. "Many of these civilizations have technologies that would astound you," Torres said. "If you were capable of thinking beyond your established rules, the Vorthak Empire can manipulate gravity itself. The crystal mines live inside stars and use solar plasma as building material. The Ghost Fleet travels through dark matter streams that your sensors can't even detect." New star charts appeared, showing familiar Council territories. But now, they were covered with red markers on hundreds of worlds. Every major population center, military base, and industrial facility. These represent locations where our dimensional folding technology could deploy kinetic strikes faster than light itself, Torres explained. "We could end your entire civilization in the time it takes you to process this sentence." The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every representative stared at the display, understanding that those red markers represented their complete helplessness. If humans could appear anywhere without warning, they could destroy anything they wanted. "But unlike you," Torres continued, "we don't believe in solving problems through banishment or force. We're offering you something better: the Treaty of Mutual Non-Interference." A new document appeared on every screen. The treaty was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of joining the Council as a member species, humanity was establishing itself as an independent galactic power. "Human space will govern itself according to human rules," Torres explained. "Council species are welcome to visit and trade with us, but only under our terms. No restrictions on technological development. No limits on exploration. No interference with internal affairs." Ambassador Zethkri found his voice. "And what of our colonies that you've been stealing?" Torres smiled slightly. "We haven't stolen anyone. We've offered them a choice. Any civilization that feels constrained by Council regulations is welcome to relocate to human space, where they'll receive full technological and territorial support." "You're breaking up our alliance," accused another representative. "Your alliance was already broken," Torres replied. "You just didn't realize it yet. How many species have petitioned to leave Council space in the past decade? How many colonies have complained about regulations that prevent them from developing freely? How many civilizations have stagnated under your protective oversight? The uncomfortable truth was that she was right. Dozens of species had requested permission to leave Council space in recent years. The Council had denied every request, claiming it was for their own protection. "We're offering them what you never could," Torres said. "The freedom to grow and develop without someone else deciding what's best for them." Admiral Cassandro activated his communication system. "And if we refuse your treaty? If we choose to fight?" Torres's expression didn't change. "Admiral, look at your tactical displays. Our ships are currently positioned within striking distance of every major Council world. We could have destroyed your entire civilization before calling this meeting. The fact that you're alive to ask that question should tell you something about our intentions." The display changed one final time, showing dozens of species that had already accepted humanity's offer. Former Council colonies now thrived in human space, their technology advancing at incredible speeds. Their populations were growing, their economies were booming. They looked happier and more prosperous than they had ever been under Council rule. "The universe is vast enough for both our approaches," Torres concluded. "The difference is, we've always known that. You can continue governing your species according to your rules. We'll continue helping those who want something different." Fleet Admiral Cassandro looked at his fleet status reports. Human ships surrounded every major world he was sworn to protect. His weapons were useless against technology he couldn't understand. His sensors couldn't even properly detect the enemy vessels. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an opponent with such overwhelming technological superiority that resistance was meaningless. The humans could destroy everything he cared about before he could even give the order to fire. "What assurance do we have that you won't attack us anyway?" he asked. "The same assurance we've had for the past 3 years," Torres replied. "If we wanted to destroy you, you'd already be dead. We're not interested in conquest. We're interested in freedom. Ours, and anyone else's who wants it." The vote on the Treaty of Mutual Non-Interference was held 3 hours later. Unlike the vote to banish humanity, this one was unanimous. Every single representative voted to accept humanity's terms. They really didn't have any other choice. As human ships began folding space and disappearing from Council space, their message was clear. They had not been conquered, contained, or controlled. They had simply chosen to let the Council continue existing in their small, rule-bound corner of the galaxy, while humanity claimed the infinite possibilities beyond. The vote to banish humanity had passed 3 years ago. But as Earth had proven, some forces in the universe simply don't recognize the authority of those who claim to govern them. 5 years had passed since the Treaty of Mutual Non-Interference was signed. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but it felt smaller somehow. What had once been the undisputed center of galactic civilization now governed only about half the known worlds. The other half had chosen to join what everyone called the Human Compact. Ambassador Zethkri stood in his office, looking out at a view that would have been impossible just years ago. Human ships moved freely through Council space. Their impossible geometry still hurt to look at directly. They came and went, as they pleased, following trade routes that didn't follow any logical pattern. "Another petition for relocation," his assistant announced, placing a data pad on his desk. "The Zelthron colony wants to move to human space." Zethkri sighed, his crystal body dimming with frustration. "That's the 15th request this month. Why do they want to leave?" His assistant consulted her notes. "They say Council regulations are preventing them from developing a new form of energy generation. Something about how it violates the standardized technology protocols." "Those protocols exist for good reasons," Zethkri said. "Experimental energy sources can be dangerous. What if their research causes an explosion? What if it creates pollution that spreads to other worlds? The Zelthrons say humans have offered to help them test the technology safely in a remote system where any accidents wouldn't hurt anyone," the assistant replied. "They claim human scientists have already solved the safety problems and want to share the solutions freely. Zethkri picked up the datapad and read through the petition. Like all the others, it was polite but firm. The Zelthrons were grateful for everything the Council had done for them. They respected the wisdom of the regulations. But they wanted to pursue opportunities that Council rules made impossible. Approved, he said finally. There was no point in denying it. The treaty gave any species the right to relocate if they chose. Trying to force them to stay would only create problems. His assistant made a note and prepared to leave, then paused. Sir, there's something else. We've received a communication from the Human Compact. They're inviting Council representatives to visit their space for a cultural exchange. Zethkri's crystal form brightened with surprise. Really? Where? New Geneva Station. It's apparently one of their major trade hubs. The invitation says, we can bring whoever we want and stay as long as we like. This was interesting news. In the 5 years since the treaty, very few Council representatives had actually visited human space. The few who had returned, with reports that sounded too incredible to believe. Cities built inside folded space that were larger inside than outside. Planets with artificial gravity that could be adjusted to make them comfortable for any species. Technology that seemed to work by principles that Council science said were impossible. Prepare a delegation, Zethkri decided. I want to see this for myself. 2 weeks later, Zethkri and a small team of Council representatives traveled to New Geneva Station using a human transport ship. The journey itself was an education. Where Council vessels took days to travel between star systems, the human ship simply folded space around itself and arrived instantly. New Geneva Station was unlike anything in Council space. The structure looked like a crystal flower blooming in the vacuum, with petals that curved through dimensions that hurt to think about. Ships from dozens of different species moved in and out of docking bays that seemed to exist in several places at once. Welcome to New Geneva, said Captain Maria Santos, as she guided the delegation through the station. I hope you'll enjoy your stay. We've prepared quarters that should be comfortable for your species. As they walked through the corridors, Zethkri saw things that challenged everything he thought he knew about civilization. Species he had never encountered before worked alongside humans and former Council members. Their technology was clearly more advanced than anything in Council space, but everyone seemed relaxed and happy. How many different species live here? He asked. On the station itself? About 400 different types, Captain Santos replied casually. But New Geneva serves as a hub for over 2,000 civilizations. We get visitors from all over the galaxy and beyond. Beyond? Asked Dr. Veltar, who had insisted on joining the delegation. You mean from other galaxies? Santos smiled. The universe is bigger than any one galaxy, Doctor. We've made contact with civilizations from 7 different galaxies so far. Turns out, once you learn how to fold space properly, distance becomes relative. They stopped at an observation deck that offered a view of the space around the station. Zethkri gasped at what he saw. Ships that looked like living creatures moved through space alongside vessels that appeared to be made of pure light. Massive structures that could only be artificial worlds hung in orbit, connected by streams of energy that pulsed with beautiful colors. That's the Eternal Library, Santos explained, pointing to a structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. It contains the collected knowledge of every civilization we've encountered. Anyone can access it freely. Nubber. Anyone? Dr. Veltar asked. Even species that might use that knowledge for harmful purposes? We've found that species tend to become less hostile when they have access to all the knowledge they want, Santos replied. It's hard to stay angry at your neighbors when you understand how the universe really works. She led them to another viewing area. And that's the development yards, where new technologies are tested and shared. Every breakthrough made by any species is offered freely to everyone else. Zethkri watched ships that defied physics moving between construction platforms where impossible projects took shape. How do you prevent conflicts over resources? Who decides which projects get priority? No one decides, Santos said. We discovered that the universe contains infinite resources. Once you learn how to access multiple dimensions, there's literally no reason to fight over anything anymore. The tour continued for hours. Zeth Kree saw medical facilities that could cure any disease, educational centers where any being could learn anything they wanted, and research stations where the fundamental laws of reality were being rewritten on a daily basis. But what impressed him most was something simple. Everyone seemed genuinely happy. I don't understand, he finally said to Captain Santos. How do you maintain order? How do you prevent chaos? In council space, we need thousands of regulations to keep civilization functioning. Santos stopped walking and looked at him thoughtfully. What exactly do you think causes chaos, Ambassador? Competition for resources, conflicts over territory, disagreements about development priorities, species trying to take advantage of each other. And what if none of those problems existed? Santos asked. What if there were infinite resources, unlimited space, and technology shared freely among everyone? What would there be to fight about? Well, Zeth Kree thought about this for a long moment. In his experience, there was always something to fight about. But looking around the station, he had to admit he saw no evidence of conflict. Different species worked together on projects that benefited everyone. No one seemed to be taking advantage of anyone else. Your regulations exist because you believe in scarcity, Santos continued. You think the universe has limited resources, so you need rules to manage how they're distributed. But humans learned something important. The universe only appears limited if you accept the limitations that others choose to see. The final stop on the tour was the station's central command center. Here, Zeth Kree met Admiral Torres in person for the first time since the treaty negotiations. Ambassador, she said warmly, I'm glad you decided to visit. What do you think of our little station? It's impressive, Zeth Kree admitted. But I have to ask, why are you showing us this? Aren't you worried we might try to copy your technology? Torres laughed. Ambassador, we hope you do copy our technology. We hope you copy our entire approach. The more civilizations that learn how to think beyond artificial limitations, the better the universe becomes for everyone. She gestured to a massive display showing the current state of the galaxy. The human compact controlled vast territories that were thriving with development and growth. Council space looked smaller and quieter by comparison. We're not competitors, Ambassador, Torres said. We're potential partners. The only difference is that we've figured out how to unlock possibilities that you still think are impossible. And if the Council wanted to change our approach, Zeth Kree asked carefully, then we'd be happy to help. Torres replied immediately. We'd share every technology, every technique, every discovery. The only thing we ask in return is that you stop trying to limit what others can achieve. As his delegation prepared to return to Council space, Zeth Kree found himself facing an uncomfortable truth. Everything he had believed about civilization, about the need for regulation and control, had been challenged by what he had seen. The human compact wasn't just more advanced than Council space. It was more successful in every way that mattered. Its citizens were happier, more prosperous, and more free. Its technology was advancing at incredible speeds. Its influence was spreading throughout the galaxy and beyond. Meanwhile, Council space was slowly shrinking as more species chose to relocate. The careful regulations that were supposed to maintain stability were instead preventing growth and development. On the flight home, Dr. Veltar expressed what they were all thinking. They're not just ahead of us technologically. They're ahead of us philosophically. They've figured out how to build a civilization without the problems we think are inevitable. The question is, Zeth Kree said quietly, are we brave enough to admit that we might have been wrong about everything? The answer to that question would determine whether the Galactic Council had a future at all. Because while they had been busy trying to maintain control over a shrinking territory, humanity had proven something important. The universe belonged to those bold enough to claim it. And humans, as they had always made clear, did not believe in accepting limitations that others chose to impose on themselves.